what's keeping the C-suite up is summed up in the word uncertainty.
Because it's not shifting from modernization to scale, it's combining the two.
The amount of change that happens in construction compared to what was designed is immense. They have the money to do it, they have the capital to do it. They don't have the construction crews to do it. They can't find transformers, they can't find poles.
Getting more out of the same resources, is that where something like an AI and automated solution comes in? What does that look like in practical terms?
Efficiency and digitization is really how they're going to achieve that. And that's how they're going to provide faster, more scalable construction for infrastructure, but also tackle affordability at the same time. Our goal is to get them just to put down the pencil and pick up a tablet. I mean, that's a leap for them, and that's a hard change management problem.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Power Perspectives, coming to you from the epicenter of the utility industry today, DTECH 2026, here in sunny San Diego. If you spend even a few minutes on the show floor this week, one thing becomes immediately clear. Utilities aren't just talking about modernizing the grid, they're talking about how to build it at scale. We're facing unprecedented levels of T&D construction, driven by load growth, electrification, resilient investments, wildfire mitigation, and that is forcing utilities to rethink not just what they build, but how they plan, construct, close out, and manage data across the entire lifecycle. So how do utilities modernize construction workflows without sacrificing safety, data quality, or capital efficiency? That's what we're here to unpack today. I'm joined by Danny Petrecca from Locusview, who's been working closely with utilities at the center of these challenges, from construction lifecycle management and data hygiene to wildfire mitigation, grid hardening, and the evolving role of digital platforms in utility operations. Danny, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Great to be here.
And I'll forgive any of our audience who hasn't tracked and known that we've talked for Energy Central in the past. So for those in our audience who haven't been around for all of that, can you introduce yourself and what your role is in the industry, and especially now at Locusview has been acquired by Itron? What does that mean for your role?
Sure. So Danny Petrecca, I'm the VP of Business Development at Locusview, now part of Itron. So my role is really around managing everything about the go-to-market for our electric solutions with respect to digital construction management. So Locusview is very well positioned in sort of the gold standard at gas utilities. And when I joined Locusview almost 7 years ago, it was really to grow us beyond gas, and electric was where my expertise took us. But the role is not changing. We're still doing what we're doing. Now we have the backing of Itron, and combined with Urbint, who is another acquisition before us, we formed this new unit within Itron called Resiliency Solutions. So the combination of those two pure utility software businesses is really the kernel of this new evolution for Itron.
I like that name, the Resiliency Solutions. And as you walk around the conference floor this week, you definitely see resilience at the top of the kind of the food chain of what people are talking about. So what have you seen? What have you been hearing from people who are coming up to you at DTECH, from panels that you've been attending? What's kind of the top line topics you're hearing?
Well, I mean, there's all the things you mentioned. Resiliency is a big buzzword, and resiliency tends to mean different things to different utilities and different vendors. If you're an East Coast utility this week, resiliency is about your poles and wires breaking under ice. If you're a California utility, resiliency is about wildfire mitigation and PSPS, things like that. The last 6 months, there has been a lot of hype and just craziness around the electric business itself. And I think what's on most people's minds, and I think what's keeping the C-suite up, is summed up in the word uncertainty. They don't know what the data center surge is going to be. Is it real? Is it phantom? They don't know if the government is going to help or hurt. They don't know if affordability is really something they can solve. They don't know if the rate cases are going to go past. And it's all about their load planning and their forecasting. If they can't do accurate forecasting, they can't do accurate planning, they can't really make decisions about serving their customers safely and efficiency, let alone resiliency. We like to think of ourselves on the DCM side as a certainty provider, in that there's a lot of blind spots in the construction of infrastructure for electric utilities, and blind spots cause uncertainty. We give a finger on the pulse of their construction jobs through real-time view of what's happening in the field so that they can have certainty in something that doesn't keep them up at night.
Yeah, and I teased it in the intro that for many years we've been talking about the modernization of it all, but it seems, especially in the past year, it's about the scale and, like you said, the data centers and building that out and how much of that is real, how much of that is phantom. So how is that impacting the conversations that you're having with the people that you're meeting with this week at Distributech? How does, the shift, because it's not shifting from modernization to scale, it's combining the two. So what does that look like from your perspective?
I mean, when you think of the construction aspect and the scale of construction, take away the last year of the data center load scare. Um, there was already a ton of money and stimulus, federal stimulus, thrown into the electric utility infrastructure business to cause a lot of new build out. So that was fuel on the fire of an already very analog process. So they are struggling to scale construction. They are not want for money. They have the money to do it. They have the capital to do it. They don't have the construction crews to do it. They can't find transformers. They can't find poles. So those things are affecting their ability to scale. So what does that mean to us and to utilities is they can't just throw more bodies at the problem. They need to do more, not with less, but more with what they already have today. And efficiency and digitization is really how they're going to achieve that. And that's how they're going to provide, faster, more scalable construction for infrastructure, but also tackle affordability at the same time.
In getting more out of the same resources, is that where something like an AI and automated solution comes in? What does that look like in practical terms?
I think that's very forward looking, but when you're talking about construction crews, I mean, our goal is to get them just to put down the pencil and pick up a tablet.
Mm.
I mean, that's a leap for them, and that's a hard change management problem. Inserting AI, sure, that can be an enabler. Using sensors like GPS to make the capture of the location of an asset easier and invisible to the user, that's helpful. Using a barcode scanner to scan a gas pipe or an electric transformer to fill out, 20 pieces of information about that asset, that's something that helps them be more efficient in the field and scale and build faster and easier.
Historically, you guys have been all about the design, construct, and closeout workflow. Does that have to change? Does that have to evolve with this new build out, new scale?
It has to improve. It can't get in the way. That's always been table stakes. Usability of any digital application given to field crews has to always be table stakes for a solution to be one adopted, and adoptability is caused by usability. And once you have adopted solution, then you actually get value. The table stakes have always been ease of use. I mean, I've spent 30 years of my life in this industry trying to get digital solutions into the field, and it caused my hair loss over the last 25 years. But we think that it's not just how an application looks or feels, it's the whole ecosystem of it. So if they use an app and it's great, but if it doesn't have connectivity and it slows down or it crashes, or if they have to stand on their left foot to get the Bluetooth to connect to this, they're going to put it down and they're going to go back to paper.
Yeah, it's got to fit into what their workflow is, and a lot of that ties into the data behind all of it, and that's something I'm hearing a lot at the panels I'm attending. Of utilities are notorious for having these treasure troves of data, but either not using it, not knowing how to use it, having questions about whether or not it's accurate or properly cleaned. And so it's a question I've asked people over the years. I might have asked you already in the past couple of years, but if you look at the utilities today, how would you grade their current, data hygiene, data practices? Are they on the right pathway here?
It's all about data. Yeah, if you listen to our CEO Tom during the keynote, one of the underpinnings of his keynote talk was data. There's got to be a better use of data. I think utilities don't know what they have. I think so. So look at Itron. I mean, for over a decade, maybe 2 decades, they've been capturing AMI data, and it goes into this repository and 16 million endpoints, something like that. What are utilities doing with that data? I think that The easiest thing is obviously they create bills, the meter to cash. But now with all these edge endpoints, they can do more intelligent things with that data. The grid edge DERMS, the distributed intelligence aspect of Itron meters, that's a massive opportunity to do something at the edge that's decentralized, that typically is centralized in an operations center with an ADMS or a SCADA system or something like that, or DERMS, a dedicated DERMS. But I got to go back to my DCM roots here in that uh, I I still think there's blind spots in data as well. I mean, we ran a peer-to-peer session here this week where we showed survey results from utilities we spoke to this year, where we did several road shows just about their construction process, their as-built data collection process, and it's still very clear that it takes a long time for construction data to get back from the field. We're not talking days or weeks, we're talking months,
Oh, wow.
maybe a year. The amount of change that happens in construction compared to what was designed is immense. So about half of the jobs change all the time. And there's a lack of confidence in the data that's coming back from the field because these are manual, paper-driven processes. If you think of where as-built data goes, it goes into your GIS, and that's your asset store. And for decades, that's been a great place to make good maps and to make decisions and to drive the finances of a company, of a utility company. But today, that GIS is feeding your ADMS, is feeding your DERMS, is feeding your operational systems that have an ROI associated with them. And that ADMS needs really good data. If you don't get a good data, you're going to get bad results from your FLISR, from your DERMS, from your voltage reduction schemes. And Gartner has talked about this a lot, that 10 to 25% of any ADMS project budget goes to GIS data cleanup. But we find that tends to be a cleanup event. It starts and it ends.
Right.
Then you have clean data. But that data is eroding the second you start pushing more paper-based as-builts that are 2 years old into your GIS. So you have to digitize the processes that are pumping data into your GIS, so your ADMS hums. We've spoken to utilities where they've done that. They've done an ADMS data cleanup. They're running their ADMS for 2 years. 2 years later, half of their substations are no longer analysis ready because the GIS data going in the process was not digitized or clean.
Is that what you consider the main or the sole source of data degradation? Are there other factors coming into play that really require utilities looking at their data practices not as like you said, a one-time event and then saying, hey, mission accomplished, but recognizing that this needs to be an ongoing process?
These aren't huge issues to change from the technology can do it. The technology can do it and we're talking very simple things like, what phase did you install the transformer on? So that's something where I think Itron and DI and that sort of stuff and edge intelligence can help, because now those meters are also phase sensors, so they can actually help you update your data in your systems of record. But it's things like wire size and conductor size and material. Those are things that are designed, but sometimes they're just not recorded in the field, and things do change in the field. We had a utility who, a typical wildfire analysis practice is they use GIS to analyze their feeders and which feeders are the most wildfire prone. Those are the ones that we will turn off during a PSPS event, a public safety power shutoff. We were speaking to one utility, and they had run some PSPSs and came to find that a circuit that they had been turning off was undergrounded a year ago, but they kept turning it off. For those of you who don't know, overhead circuits are going to be the more fire prone, underground or not. So you typically don't have high wildfire risk underground circuits, just because they had not posted that as built yet.
No, and I'm glad you bring up the wildfire example, because that's another pressing theme that I've heard a lot this week. We're in California, which is you always think of that's wildfire center, but it's really a lot of people have been saying, hey, it's not a California problem anymore. It's Colorado. It's out in the east. It's everywhere, and people want to be proactive there. And a lot of the conversations I'm hearing are about hardening the grid in a physical way. But like you mentioned, there is a digital element to it as well. So are there other software-based practices that are coming into play and utilities should be better utilizing when it comes to their wildfire mitigation, suppression, and making sure that we're all protected in that way?
Yeah, it's a multifaceted space right now. I mean, there's everything from LiDAR and veg management analysis to lightning detection to all things that can, or even AI powered um, video cameras that can sense a fire and immediately correlate it to assets or not. It's a tricky space. I think it's filled with a lot of great ideas. I think it's ripe for some consolidation and ripe for some real good reference case studies out there. I know there were some good sessions this week here at DistribuTech talking about really valuable wildfire systems. To us, it could be as simple as, hey, when you're taking a DCM solution out and you have a work order to do construction in an area, have an alert that, hey, you're doing construction in this wildfire area. Here are some extra precautions or safety measures or construction practices you can or can't do because you're in this area, right? But then again, it's the same as the right data going into your ADMS that's going to run these analyses around your PSPS as well.
We touched upon it a little bit, but the way that these modern tools impact the in the field workforce, and both the opportunities that brings of, oh, if we had all these digital data points and tools, that would be amazing. But sometimes the struggle is getting people to use them or to buy into them. So are those the main challenges that you see in implementation? Is it really is it mostly on the human side and getting buy-in there? And is it, have you found success in any sort of strategies to show them the power once you get those tools in their hands, how it actually makes their jobs easier?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, early in my career, it used to be that field adoption was a hurdle. At our company, I think we've perfected it. So we actually love the opportunity to get our solutions into the hands of the field because it shines, and they love it, and they say it's always faster with Locusview. So that I think I don't want to underestimate the change management associated with that, but the difficult part of getting a solution like ours adopted is not the users, it's that it touches so many different aspects of a utility enterprise that you have to get buy-in from at least three different sources of enterprise systems within a utility. I mean, work starts in a work management system. So you need the owners of that system to buy in to say, okay, the work system I use today does X, but Locusview DCM is going to augment that. So I need to be bought in because it's going to touch my field users. We get our work orders from a design system. So the design, graphic work design users need to buy into, okay, this design is going out to the field in Locusview. And the reason it's doing that is so that the data is better, so that my next design is better and more constructible. And then the workhorse is really the GIS. The GIS team is the receiver of the downstream data, and they're the disseminator of that data to OT systems like ADMS. They need to buy into, okay, I'm getting valid, confirmed data from the field. I can trust it, and that's going to make my processes data later better. So you need a VP of engineering, you need a VP of IT, you need a VP of work and operations, and you need buy-in from the field. That's a hard thing to sell, and it takes a while. But we're also going to a patient who thinks they're healthy and telling them they're terminally ill, and they say, "Will we feel fine?" When we say, "Well, how about when you move your elbow like this?" And they go, "Hey, yeah, that actually does hurt." And we go, "Yeah, you have this pain, and you don't know it. We can help with that."
I mean, it's almost a cliche to say, one of the challenges enterprise-wide in utilities is silos and, different parts of the machine not talking to each other. So I would imagine trying to be one of the tools that's breaking that down. That's not necessarily your goal, but like you said, you need that buy-in from
Yeah.
each of those different silos. So how do you approach that? Is it from the top down? Do you get the executive buy-in, or do you have to kind of have five different conversations to get them all on board?
It's different with every utility, but it is a team effort. Um, Top down is the best because when I can tie the value of DCM to a promised ROI for a $50 million ADMS project, the CIO is going to listen to that and go, oh, you're going to give me better fuel in this project that's going to help me do better wildfire and blizzard. They're listening. It's harder to get, like, let's say a GIS team to say, oh, you'll make my maps a little better. That's not so interesting to them. But the field is very important. You have to have adoption from the field. And another thing we talked about in our peer-to-peer session was how do you get the field crews to understand the value of better data? It's easy. You make it about safety. If you collect better data today in a more accurate as-built, it might take you an extra 5 minutes, but the next map you get out in the field, it's going to create a safer environment for you because the assets on the map are going to be where you think they are in the field. When you dig, you know it's either there or not there. The pole you're going to fix is where it says it is on the map.
And like another, kind of cliche trope of the utility industry that it makes me think of is how, some of these field workers have been, the old hats who are, I've done it for this way for decades. Why am I going to change now?
Right.
Do you find that, as the workforce evolves, there's any sort of change in how these conversations go? Or are you able to kind of tap into maybe the more digitally native workers that are kind of rising in the ranks?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, years ago it used to be, hey, don't make me pick up one of these, but now you they have several of these in their hands. They're making fantasy football trades. They're finding their restaurant. They're getting directions. So it's much more adoptable today, but that it still doesn't mean you can give them a clunky, kludgy application that doesn't work just because it's on a phone or a tablet. It still has to match their workflow and match the way they do construction work in the field. And that's what
Sure.
we've done from day one.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And then, I just want to we touched on this earlier, but I want to highlight kind of the undercurrent of all of this is the Itron acquisition of Locusview and how that's changing what you're able to do for your customers in, an individual way and then as an organization. So can you talk to me about how the acquisition is really accelerating your ability to help utilities in all of these issues we've been talking about today?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you think about what Itron does, what we do, and what Urban do, we are squarely focused on electric and gas utilities. Itron is a powerhouse and dominant with electric and really does really well in gas. I think when you look at what we've done with Urban coming together under resiliency solutions, it's really about connecting risk and safety intelligence with execution in the field. So Urban, they excel in worker safety, damage prevention, emergency preparedness, and response. They have a full suite there that's really about the human assets and the workers, and also protecting assets from 811 dig-ins. And then we have that DCM solution that manages that construction lifecycle from planning to construction to closeout, feeding the IT and OT systems downstream. When you combine those things, you really start to create this ecosystem around unifying different sources of data. I'll come back to data. I'll come back to what Tom was talking about on Monday. You talk about the operational data that Itron has with the meter information. You talk about the asset and spatial data we have with DCM, and you have the worker and safety and risk and AI data that Urban has. You really start to combine this thing into a full life cycle of how do you plan better? How do you build better, operate, protect, and maintain those assets better? That's really that life cycle we see. And to us, that's really makes, coming back to resiliency, we don't directly sell resiliency, but we make resiliency better. We make it more proactive instead of reactive. We make it more efficient and we make it safer. That's really what this resiliency solution division is all about. And that's our vision within Itron.
Awesome. Well, that's really exciting to hear about. So before we let you go, if our viewers or listeners are interested in finding out more or reaching out, where can they kind of get more information?
Well, if you're here at the show, there's a giant red booth down there with Itron all over it. We have a pod there where Resiliency Solutions is. Locusview has a booth here. Urban has a booth as well. Our website, locusview.com, is the best place to go to get the latest information. You can always look at the archives of Energy Central, lots of articles there. coming up, we'll be at several other conferences and around the country and doing some more digital marketing ourselves with you guys. So yeah, just reach out to us, and I'm sure there's my email address is somewhere out there.
Yeah, we'll make sure that our viewers can get that. So thank you so much for taking some time out of, I know it's a very busy week for you, and we appreciate you sitting down with us for Power Perspectives, Danny.
You're welcome. My pleasure.